Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Mindful Knitter podcast. My name is Claire and I am your host. Welcome back if you are returning. I am so happy that you come to hang out with me. This has been an amazing community over the past year or two that we have built. Not two, almost year and a half that we have built. So I'm just so grateful for you guys all of the time. And if you are new, welcome, and I'm happy that you found me. Hopefully we will have some fun and you will enjoy our time hanging out together today. For those of you who are new, I am coming to you from the southeast of the United States, where I live with my husband, Alex, and our 3 Great Danes, Murphy, Nolly, and Obi. We do also have 2 goldfish named Mantis and Caterpillar, but they don't get involved in stories a whole lot. Although, I don't know, they do actually. There are stories about our goldfish. So yes, and this is mostly a knitting podcast, but we do talk about other yarny things, other fibery things, like spinning, crochet, weaving, sometimes things like embroidery or sewing, but it is mostly about the knitting. So today I think we are all about knitting, and we've got some pretty yarn to show as well, so that'll be fun. If you want to connect with me on social media, you can find me on Instagram as the.mindfulknitter. On Ravelry, it's Mindful Knitter Pod, and we do have a Ravelry group. It's the Mindful Knitter Podcast group. If you want to email me about anything, if you ever want to email me, then you can email me at clairethemindfulknitter@gmail.com. I think that is pretty much all of those things. Other than that, any important information that I talk about, like pattern, designers, yarn, etc., all that information will be in the description down below the video. You can find that description by clicking on more. After the title of the video, it says more, and is it a hyperlink? It's a button, and you'll have a drop down that'll have a description of the video. So all of my show notes and everything are down there. And we are going to be talking about the make-along that is starting today, January the 9th. So information for the make-along is also down below. So if you don't memorize everything that I say about that today, no worries, it's in the information below the video. So let's go ahead and get into things for today. We'll do finished objects, works in progress. We'll talk about the make-along that starts today. It's the Hygge Make-Along, so it's all about coziness during the winter time. And then I'll have a little bit of some yarny goodness at the end, because I did get some yarn in the mail from the New Year's Eve sales that I partook in. And this will be these are my yarny purchases for the month. So yeah, unless something just super unexpected comes up. But yes, so we'll have that at the end. And then we'll talk about some books that I am reading as well. So first finished object I am wearing. So this is the Forage shawl by Helen Stewart. This was part of her Knit Vent 2022 collection. I did make a couple of minor modifications to it, but it is all blocked and finished and lovely. It is bigger than her version, by a bit actually. So her version is written for fingering weight yarn, and that's it, just fingering weight yarn. What I did was I held fingering weight double with mohair, and I went up a needle size to accommodate the mohair, and which I probably didn't need. It would have just given me a denser fabric, but I wanted it to be kind of light and airy. So I went up a needle size, added the mohair, and then I also added some repeats. I think with the original pattern, it should have stopped here. So I added on another section and a half, or repeat and a half, of the stockinette, the lace, and then more stockinette. So I did make this quite a bit bigger. because of the increase in the needle size and adding on this at the end, this whole section. Yeah, it did turn out to be quite a bit bigger. But this was a really relaxing, simple lace shawl to knit. It's an asymmetrical triangle, as you can see. The lace is simple but effective. And I used a variety of minis that I'd had in my stash and scraps. So the main minis that I used in the shawl I'd had in my stash for over a year, more like a year and a half. They were actually the first hand-dyed yarn that I'd ever gotten or bought for myself. And I got a mini set from, or 2 mini sets from Nanette Wake Studio in 2021. And yeah, I finally found a home in this lovely shawl, and I really, really like this a lot. It is very, very lofty and lovely. I've never knit with or worn mohair, and I do like it. It has a slight scratch to it, but not bad. It's not to the point of being irritating, but it is enough of a scratch that I think I will, as much as possible in the future, use Surrey and not mohair, because the Surrey doesn't have any scratch at all. But it's not enough to be irritating. It's just enough to give it like a little bit of texture. But I do really like it a lot, and I like how the colors all play together with each other. I wanted it to be kind of like a lavender field. Yeah, it makes me think of like a lavender field by the ocean. So, are there any other things to say about it? The mohair that I used was Knit Picks, the Knit Picks mohair. I think it's called Aloft, and I used the white colorway. I did run out though, so because I did this extra like repeated section at the end, 2 25-gram balls of that, or cakes of that, was not enough. So I ended up, I suspected though that I wasn't gonna have enough. So I had earlier in December ordered some drops, alpaca silk, or no, kid silk, drops kid silk. So the mohair silk lace weight yarn from Drops. And I'd ordered that from a seller on Etsy. So that was this, and I love it immensely. I think it's going to get a lot of use. I was wanting another shawl to wear because I really just have 2 shawls that I wear consistently right now, because one of my shawls is giant. The other shawl is more like autumnal colors, and then I have like a shawlette, which I'll actually talk about in a minute, or in a few minutes. Yeah, and those are my shawls. So I just have the 2 of them that are like this size, that aren't autumnal colors, that I just kind of go back and forth. One's crocheted and one is another design by Helen Stewart. So yeah, very happy. Actually, I talked about that shawl in the previous episode, episode 30. That was the Miss May shawl from Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. So very, very happy with this one. It was almost done when I showed it to you guys last time. I was just waiting on that mohair to arrive, and it did arrive. So yeah, this is and it's like nice and, yeah, it's just super light and airy, but very, very warm because of the mohair, which is what I wanted. I wanted a lightweight lace shawl that was going to be warm. So between that merino fingering and the mohair, this is a great lightweight shawl for the winter. I have another finished object to show you guys, and it's another shawl. I showed this to you guys last week as just one that I had just started, and I'd had about this much done. It's done now. And also just a moment ago when I was hitting record, I realized that there is one little like end that I didn't weave in, and I don't have a tapestry needle around me. So I figured I'd just show it to you guys and I'll weave it in later. So we'll ignore that. But this is my just kind of like neon rainbow boomerang shawl. There's no designer or pattern for this. I just knit a boomerang shawl, a style shawl, where you're just increasing along one side of your triangle and decreasing along the other side. And it gives you a, it is almost symmetrical, not quite, well, it is almost symmetrical. One leg of the triangle is like about that much longer than the other, but it's almost a symmetrical kind of shawl. So this is big. And just really fun. I really like this a lot. I kind of think of it as my fairy shawl, partially because of the colors, but then also I knit this while I was listening to an audiobook that was very, it was like high fantasy, and they don't really call them, no, they do call them fairies at some points. I'll talk about it a little bit when we're talking about what I've been reading lately. But Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Again, I'll talk about it later. Yeah, Naomi Novik. Their character is called the Starik, and they're basically like winter elves, fairies. They're more like fairies than elves, I'd say. And yeah, they're like a main part of the story. And so I just kept thinking of like fairies. They're not super like glitter, like, I don't know, they're not like Tinkerbell fairies. They're more like, they're more fairies in the sense like the fae, like you would think of in more kind of traditional folklore kind of stories. So yeah, so this is my neon rainbow fairy shawl. There's no pattern. I just did a boomerang construction and put eyelets in at fairly regular intervals. I did 2 eyelet sections or rows for this guy and this guy, and then for each of the other color changes I did an eyelet right at the end before I added the next color. And this took about 2.5 skeins of yarn. Well, so it took about 250 grams, and it's this fingering held double. And it is almost all Nanette Wake Studio yarn that I had in stash, mostly 50 gram skeins. This one was a 100 gram skein, and I just used half of it. I'll probably use the other half for DK weight socks. I'll just hold it double again. But like right at the end here for this yellow, I did actually use an alpaca yarn that I had in stash because I needed some yellow to end off. And I didn't have any yellow merino laying around. So yeah. So that is this one, and I'm so sorry if you can hear my puppy in the background. That's one of the Great Danes. He is not very happy that he is in the other room and not in here with me. But he can't be in here with me because if he was, I'd never get anything filmed because he would be knocking everything over. So yeah, that is that guy, and I'm pretty happy with him. How did I knit you? I think I knit him on US 8s. It was either US 8s or US 9s. And yeah, I think I cast on like 3 stitches, and then just on one side I'd increase, and on the other side I'd decrease with every row. So, yeah. Let's see. So those are my finished objects. I have basically knit a shawl since last week when we were talking, because the lace shawl was mostly done, and I had a little bit of the other one done. I'll put this guy back on so we can revel in his glory some more. So works in progress. So today I have to show you my sweater that I'm working on. I'm being very colorful right now because it's winter, and so it's gray outside, and I want to play around with color. Also, for gift knitting, I was doing a lot of not the colors that I enjoy, because they were gifts for other people, and they weren't necessarily colors that I enjoy for myself. So right now I'm just doing all of like the fun colors. This is based on the Arts sweater by We Are Knitters, but I have modified it heavily enough that it's not the Arts sweater anymore. Like, it's not at all. The basic number of stitches and things for it are based on the Arts sweater. But we're just going to be honest and say it doesn't qualify as an Arts sweater anymore. It is now my own. It is now my own thing. This is knit in the We Are Knitters, the Petite wool, in the Yarnicorn colorway. I've got 4 balls of that, and then I will probably need a 5th ball to just finish it up around like the cuffs and things. And so I have finished the body. As you can see, I knit it in the round until I split for the sleeves, and then I knit that part flat, and then I seamed it up at the top here. I'm trying to decide if I want to keep it like that or if I want to do something a little more decorative. I don't mind it like that for now, but I might do something decorative to it. Yeah, and the yarn is super fun. I've had this yarn for over a year, and I'm excited to finally be using it. I set this in a basket, like an old wicker basket that I got from an antique shop, and it snagged a little. So I'm gonna pick up for the sleeves today, I think, and then I'm gonna knit the sleeves. I think I'm gonna do bishop sleeves. I think that's what they're called when they don't really decrease. I might decrease a little bit for the forearm, but they don't really decrease much, and then you do a rapid decrease, and then you do your cuff, so that it just gives like a little bit of a poofiness right here. I really like that look. So I think I'll do that for the sleeves. And I'm thinking I'm gonna pick up stitches around the collar and do a bit of a ribbed collar, maybe even a folded over, like a double rib, what would you call that? A folded over collar. It's double thick. I might do that for the neck, and then I'm going to take out this part and put like a pink rib, either in this yarn if I've got enough, or a different pink yarn. I found this in Stash, and I think it'll be good to use with this. It's not the exact same color pink, but I think that it is close enough that it coordinates well. And this is from Juniper Moon Farm. This is the Harriet Great. It's the pure extra fine baby alpaca. It's wonderfully soft. I was going to make a cowl with it, but it would be nice at the neckline to be around my neck because it's very lovely and soft. So I think that'd be really very nice. And then of course I can use it for the hem or the cuffs if I really need to. This is 100 grams, it's 131 yards. And this is the color Piglet, color 151. So yeah, I found that in Stash, and I think that's gonna be a good to use with this. Yep, so that's exciting. That'll be done by the next time we chat, I think. Whether that's next week or the week after. The next project to show you guys, I only have 2 works in progress right now. I've gone back to my mostly monogamous knitting ways. That is kind of how I tend to knit. The last couple of months was a little more all over the place with gift knitting and just wanting to cast on. I had like some serious cast on-itis. And I was participating in mystery cowls and like all kinds of stuff. So I'm back to my knitting just a couple projects at a time, which is really nice. And so I'll show you my Twists and Turns shawl by Stephen West. This was the mystery knit along this year. And I am almost done with Clue 2. So this is coming along very nicely, I think. I'm really loving this neutral blushy pink and this tonal brown or tan with this bright neon pink. These colors make me so happy. I am loving knitting on this. It is so much more fun to knit on this time around. Mostly this section was just not my jam. I was trying to do it quickly and it takes a million years and I'm not a quick knitter, so that was more stressful than fun. But everything else has been so enjoyable. And this is my first time doing cables, and I really enjoyed this cable section. I'm over halfway done with the second cable section on the other wing. And I just really like that. It's interesting how like open this fabric is, but I don't know. Like it's not a very like tight fabric, but I don't know. That'll probably be fine. It might, hopefully it'll puff up a bit when it's blocked. But I love these cables. They're really fun. I don't think that I'm gonna get super into cable knitting. Like I don't foresee myself doing like a cable sweater unless it's one that maybe has like just a couple of small cable details, or like a pair of socks with some small, I don't see myself like getting super into cables, but I do enjoy it more than I thought that I would. So I'm definitely open to more cable projects in the future, as long as they are small, simple cables. Yeah, so I've got my yarn everywhere. It's just everywhere. My puppy is being dramatic. I'm sorry if you can hear him. I love him though. I'm also sorry to him for keeping him from me, but he really would. He would knock everything over, and it would be a disaster. There's no way I'd be able to film. So the yarns I'm using for this are, this is the Zahara colorway. So the bright neon pink is from Nanette Wake Studio, and basically it's the Grapefruit Sorbet colorway. That's not this one exactly, but I got a skein of the Grapefruit Sorbet because it matches this skein almost perfectly. Really the only difference is this has little flecks of orange, like neon orange in it, and the Grapefruit Sorbet does not. And then the other two are Hobby Lobby yarns. So they are Yarn Bee, authentic hand-dyed. They're fingering, they're 100% Superwash Merino, and the brown color is the Zahara colorway, and the pink, like the blush, the really pale blush pink, is Flamenco. Now all of them are barking because I think someone's come up the driveway. All right. Oh, life with Great Danes. So those are my two works in progress to share with you guys. We are just like zipping through today. I'm going to show this to you because I'm probably going to work on this in the next week or so. Probably. This I knit about a year ago, almost a year ago now. This is the Pluma Shawlette. I think that the pattern is called the Pluma Shawl, and it's by Manos del Uruguay. Pretty sure. Yes, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. I knit this. This is a one-of-a-kind colorway. It's from Nanette Wake Studio. Oh dear, what's it called? I don't remember. I want to say Primrose, but I don't think that's it. Yeah, but it's not available anymore. But I do love this shawlette. The issue I have with it is about one skein. It's actually a little less than one skein. I didn't really know. This is my first shawl I'd ever done. And anyway, so I didn't really I was just trying to get some shawl practice to see if I liked knitting shawls. Fun fact, I do like knitting shawls. And it's got these pretty little feathers, like a feather lace. That's where it gets the name Pluma. With this little picot bind off. So I don't know if that was too close. There we go. So what I think I'm going to do is I am going to pick up stitches along this top. What I'll probably do is I'll probably pick up a stitch and make a stitch and alternate that all the way across to get the right number of stitches, because it looks like these are, I'll look at it more closely. But in any case, I'm going to pick up stitches along this long edge, and then I'm just going to add length to it because it's so small, it doesn't stay on me. So it barely wraps around. So I'm constantly having to readjust it. It's constantly falling off. So it needs a longer wingspan. So I'm just going to pick up stitches and increase on both ends for each row so that I get more of a wingspan and it is more wearable. And I'll let you know how that experiment goes. I will probably mimic this lace like spine in the center as well. So I was just going to share that with you guys because this is something that it's an old finished object that I am going to modify to make it more wearable because I really love this yarn and I like the shawlette, but it's too small to be practical and wearable. So I'm going to modify it. There are no rules that say you can't go back to things you finished a year ago and do things to them to make them, I don't know, fit what you are needing now. All right, so before I do books and the yarn that I have bought or that I have purchased, let's talk about the Make-Along. So this is the Hygge Make-Along. This will be the second year that we have done this. Last year was the first time. And, oh, I got distracted by my notes. Yeah, I shared everything. So it starts today, January 9th, and it will end on March 19th. So it runs through winter. Technically, winter started on, it was the 21st of December, or the 20th. I think it's the 21st was winter solstice. So we've been in winter for a few weeks now, but there's too much stuff going on in December. So we start in January for the Hygge Make-Along. And it is a make-along, so it doesn't just have to be knitting. So basically what we will be doing is making things that evoke the sense of hygge. And if you're not familiar with hygge, I have put the definition, I think it's either the Webster definition or like the Google definition down below this video. But it is a noun, and it is a Danish concept. The definition is it's a quality of coziness and comfortable conviviality that engenders a feeling of contentment or well-being, and it's regarded as a defining characteristic of Danish culture. So I might do like a make-along video at some point, maybe like in February, to kind of just add to the hygge-ness of things. But basically, I'm just inviting you to join me in practicing hygge during this cold, dark time of year. We're just going to be creating coziness for ourselves. A lot of what goes into hygge is resting, relaxing during this quieter time of year, finding coziness, warmth, light in this dark, cold time of year. It's a season where nature is resting, and so it's kind of a way for us to rest. It's very similar to the idea of hibernating. There's, within hygge, my understanding of it is there's also a big emphasis, or a big part of it is based in a sense of community. So a lot of the times with hygge, like maybe that's just eating dinner together, or maybe for us, it would be making like a scarf for someone that we care about, or maybe we're using some yarn that someone gifted to us and we think about them when we make our project, or what have you. Or maybe the community is being part of this make-along together. So that's basically what the make-along is. It's just a chance for us to be cozy and warm and bring some joy and restful, peaceful community in during this time of the year. So there will be some prizes available. Those will be drawn at the end. And to be eligible for prizes, prize winners will be drawn randomly. So not everybody who submits a finished object will get a prize, but if you submit a finished object, you could be eligible for a prize. So to be eligible for a prize, these are the criteria. You will make a project that embodies hygge for you. So maybe that means that it is cozy, warm, bright, cheerful, restful. There's a sense of community about it, etc. And if you can, whenever you submit your finished object, if you can just give a little bit of an explanation or reflection on how that project embodied the sense of hygge for you. Doesn't have to be anything super, I don't have specific guidelines for that. Just what is it about this project that brought hygge into your life or enabled you to practice some hygge. There's no minimum project size. You can do any project size you want. I would probably say, just for the sense of fairness, don't do like one dish towel or one dishcloth. But I mean, I don't really have an actual size limit or size minimum requirement on it because I just want us to be cozy together in the winter. So it's not very, there's not really a real size requirement. Double dipping is fine. So if you're doing the Hygge Knit-Along with Stephen West or any other knit-alongs or make-alongs, feel free to use those projects for this make-along as well. And whips are allowed. So if you've already started a project, that's fine. It qualifies. Again, I'm not being super specific around what is required for this. I just want it to be a make-along where we're getting together and being cozy and bringing in some relaxing joy and community during a dark, cold time of the year. Yeah, and knitting, crochet, weaving, all perfectly qualifiable crafts for this. Fiber arts that are not even necessarily wearable. I'd say spinning counts too. If you want to spin a skein of yarn or several skeins of yarn, I think that counts too, because that for me is very, I light a candle and I've got my spinning and I've got my dogs and I can see my twinkly lights, and I think that counts. So if it's fiber related, go for it. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. For how you can submit them, you can submit them in the Ravelry group. There is a thread for the Hygge Make-Along. I created that thread last year. I'll just update it for this year's, but feel free to go ahead and participate in there. I will say our Ravelry group is not super active. I'm not super active on Ravelry. It's just not a platform that I tend to gravitate to. I find it very useful. And if Ravelry delights you, then please feel free to do all of the Ravelry things in our group. I will be checking it, and I will definitely check it for finished objects for when I'm doing prizes. And definitely feel free to chat in there. I will respond to any comments and I'll chat with you. But we are not as active on there as on Instagram. So you can also submit finished objects on Instagram. And the hashtag for this make-along is going to be, it's kind of long, so if you're doing multiple posts, like you can always just copy and paste it. Or I think once you type it in one time, it should like suggest it for you again for future posts. So you don't have to type it in full every single time. But the hashtag is hashtag the mindful knitter Hygge MAL. So it's kind of long, but again, you don't have to type it out fully every time. Instagram should suggest it to you after you get part way through that. Yeah, and so you can submit things under that hashtag. You can also just post your works in progress on there, and we can chat and hang out with each other and talk about all of our cozy hygge making, and that'll be good. And I probably will do like a video sometime during the make-along to kind of update you on my projects, how I'm practicing hygge this winter. Maybe I will do a meditation or a mindfulness practice for the make-along, and I'll post that as a video. We'll see. I know I did one, at least one last year, and I will definitely link that. I think I'll link it to this video, and then I'll link it to any other hygge videos that I do. So I think that's it for the make-along. If you've got any questions about it, please feel free to let me know. But yeah, that is how we are going to be practicing our coziness together for the next couple months. And there will be prizes at the end. I will update you as to what those will be. I have quite a number to choose from, so I'll put together maybe a couple different prize bundles for you guys. So that is that. I hope that you join me. So next we'll talk about some yarny goodness that I purchased during the New Year's Eve sales. I did get some things. I didn't get like a huge pile of things because I'm trying to be very like curated and thoughtful in how I'm purchasing yarn this year. But I'm also not giving myself any specific guidelines. My guideline for myself this year is just notice how I feel when I am purchasing yarn, after I've purchased it, when I'm looking at it in my stash, and kind of letting that be my guide. If I'm noticing I'm getting stressed by certain things, I can use that information. If I'm noticing certain things make me feel happy or peaceful, I can use that information. So, yeah, I'm not giving myself rigid guidelines around my stash because my stash makes me happy, and my yarn makes me happy, and my hobby makes me happy. The only time it's a problem is if it becomes stressful. So that's the only thing I'm trying not to do, is I'm trying not to make it. I'm trying to be mindful of what I am bringing into my life so that I'm not needlessly stressing myself out. So I did buy a few things. Everything I got was actually during de-stash sales, which was fun. I got a few skeins from Nanette Wake Studio's de-stash on Etsy. And then I got a couple of skeins from Mr. Percy Knits on Instagram, or not Instagram, on Etsy. I'll link them down below, or I'll put them down below so that, in case I'm getting the names a little mixed up. But Nanette Wake Studio, I'm definitely not getting that one mixed up. And I got these 4 skeins from her, which I am super excited about. I've been wanting to try this yarn for quite a while, and I haven't been able to find it in a super accessible way. And so for her de-stash sale, I said, yes, please. This is the Ching Fiber Melted Surrey, Melted Baby Surrey. I'm pretty excited about it. I got this is the Sherbert colorway. I did get 4 skeins of this from her de-stash. Isn't that so much fun? I'm really noticing that like pale neon colors are really, I'm super attracted to them right now, and I don't know why. I used all of my neon yarn that I own went into that neon rainbow shawl, the fairy shawl, because I'm not normally very neon-ish or neon-y. Yeah, I don't really have other neon yarn. I have a couple, like, I see 2 skeins that have like a really bright color in them, but I don't know if I would classify them as neon. Everything else is pretty tame. But I'm really loving these like pale pastel neons right now, and I don't know why, but they just are making me really happy, so that's fine. This one is Fruit Salad. Isn't that pretty? So I really, really like these 2, and I think they go super well together. So these might get put into a lovely project together, either by themselves or paired with another yarn. We'll see. And then I absolutely adore these 2 so much. I really like those 2 though. So it's kind of hard to, I don't really have a ranking system, but this is Pufferfish. Oh, I love that. I love a lavender and a lilac, and I love a speckle. That's so much fun. Oh my goodness. I don't know what this is going to be, but it's going to be awesome. And then I adore this. I will likely use this on its own, and unless I find that's just the perfect yarn to pair with it, but I adore this. I wish that I had like 4 of these. This is Narwhal, and this is very much in my wheelhouse of colors. Oh my goodness. I just love that so much. Yeah, Narwhal. Yeah, and these were all on D-Stash, and she was doing like a D-Stash sale. So amazing. I think it was like 30% off or something. I can't remember, but it was amazing. I was so excited. Ah. So 4 skeins of the Melted Baby Surrey from Ching Fiber, and I just can't. Let's see them all together. Oh my gosh. So pretty. Oh my goodness, you guys. What am I even gonna do? I feel like I just went to a fiber festival. I'm so happy. All right. That makes me very happy. So those are exciting. So that was a great find. And then the other thing that I got for the New Year's Eve D-Stash sales, this was from, I want to say Mr. Percy Knits. It could be Mr. Percy's Knits. But these were 2 skeins in that D-Stash. And I think that these are both dyed by Mr. Percy Knits. I think, and I don't know the colorway names. They just had like, this was like peach speckle or something. And there was only one of them because it was D-Stash, but isn't that beautiful? I think it's on a BFL. And this really reminds me of the Heidi and Lana kind of dye style, which I adore. And I've never gotten any Heidi and Lana stuff, but I really want to. That might be something that I do this year, is finally buy something from them. But I love this. Really love this. I think that's beautiful. I think that'll be great for a Helen Stewart shawl. And then I got this one as well, and I really love this one. How pretty is that? I think I finally found the right setting for the ring light, because I think these are showing up pretty true on screen, at least as far as I can tell. Yeah, I think the addition of the ring light was very helpful for showing yarn colors, and the tripod situation is a lot more stable now too. So that's good. Yeah, and this is a merino. This is definitely not merino. This is BFL. I've never actually purchased a BFL yarn. I haven't spun with BFL either, so I was interested to see what it would be like. And it's just definitely a more rustic feeling yarn. It's nice. It feels very, it smells good. How would you say? I don't love the term more rustic, and I don't love the term more textured, because like texture is there are all sorts of different types of textures. So because something feels a little rougher, that doesn't mean it has more texture. It just means it has a rougher texture. So I don't really know what descriptor to use other than this is a slightly more rough kind of feel than like a merino, which is kind of nice. It adds a little interest. So I like that. I don't love a super rough, scratchy wool. It's just not my jam. I like softness, which is actually probably for the best, because I definitely have eczema, and so my skin is very sensitive. So it's probably good that I like the softer things, because it's better for my skin. Yeah, anyway, so these are the 2 that I got. They're both fingering weight. The Ching Melted Baby Surrey, I think, is like a sport weight. This is 191 yards in 50 grams. So yeah, that's a sport. So happy. So that's my little yarn haul. I was super excited. And yeah, those New Year's Eve sales, I don't know if you guys get on Etsy for New Year's Eve, but last year I also found some really awesome stuff during those sales. Sometimes they're better than the Black Friday sales. It's so interesting, but oh well. So fun. I think it's because, well, I don't know. I'm not going to throw out theories when I don't know what I'm talking about. So those are my purchases that I made. And yeah, I will next podcast episode, depending on whether I film next week or the week after, I might have one more little yarn set to show you, because I signed up. I went back and forth for like a month about it, and then I finally was like, no, I'm gonna do it, because I've never signed up for a yarn club before. And Fuzzy Peach Fibers, pretty sure I'm saying that correctly. As soon as I start to film, I immediately forget what everything is called. But Fuzzy Peach Fibers, gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. She is so talented. So many of these artists are so talented. But she has very like soft pastel-y and soft neon and lovely neutral pairings with things. Right now she has a Celestial Sky collection, which is these vibrant, kind of neon-ish, but not necessarily neon, really just more like vibrant, bright colors that are very speckled and tonal and variegated. It's just a whole range, and it's gorgeous. She's got so many bases. Anyway, I've never bought any of her yarn before, but I've just like looked at it online a lot. And she has a yarn club for the winter that she's doing. It's called the Cozy Morning Yarn Club, and all the spots for it are filled now. But once a month we get a yarn set, and I think it's on an MCN. So I think it is a merino cashmere base. And I think it's a 100-gram skein and then two 20-gram minis, I'm pretty sure. And you just get one set a month for January, February, and March. And so this will be my first yarn club that I have signed up for. And it was a luxurious little bundle. And I'm not really planning on, again, I'm planning on being a little bit different in how I'm buying yarn this year. And so one of my thoughts was, this is more, a little bit more luxurious than I would normally buy for myself, but I have so much yarn at this point. I think I would rather have fewer skeins that are a little bit more special for me, like just for where I am at right now. And I've loved her yarn for a while, and I've really wanted to try her yarn for a while, and I can't really decide which ones I want to try. So I'll let her pick it for me. So I'll have that to show you guys next time probably, because I think she ships it out in the middle of the month. So I'll either be able to show it to you next time or at the end of the month. But that's some yarny goodness to look forward to. I have a splinter from this basket. I bought this basket at an antique shop. And so it now stores all of my podcasting stuff. As I have things I need to put together for the podcast, they all go in there, and it fits nicely, and it's easy to bring down the stairs, and that system's working better. But I think I'm going to line it with like a pillowcase or something, because it is old and it does snag on stuff. So books that I'm reading right now. I feel like I'm talking a little faster than usual today, and I think it's because Obi's distress, he's stopped barking now, which is nice, but I think his distress was like creating a sense of urgency in me. Like my mother instincts were initiated, and I was like, oh, my baby is distraught. I need to go to him. So I'm sorry if today felt a little bit rushed. But let's see, for books that I'm reading right now, and if you were just here for the yarny things, thank you so much for hanging out, and I hope to see you again soon in the next video. But if you want to stick around for another few minutes, we'll talk about the books that I'm reading. I did finish Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and I'm probably not pronouncing her name perfectly, but I do what I can. I will have it down below so you'll know how it's spelled. It was really good. I know last week I had said that it was starting out depressing, and that's true. But you know, so many books do, especially if it's kind of like a high fantasy epic tale kind of thing. They start out a little depressing because, you know, you need to figure out like, where are these characters starting from? And you need to know about all their sad backstory so that you can really appreciate all of the growth and all of the trials they go through the story. So anyway, it was kind of depressing for the first like hour of the audiobook. And I think this audiobook was 22 hours, read at normal speed. on the Libby app, which is the free library app that I use, you can check out digital books, either audiobooks or the digital books that you can read yourself. Not all books are available in either format. It depends on your library system, etc. But I use that the Libby app for all of my audiobooks, basically. And so it was 22 hours. The first hour and a half was just kind of depressing. So I was trying to decide, am I going to keep listening to this? I'm glad I did. It was a very good book, a great story. It is sort of loosely based on Rumpelstiltskin. You don't really get that vibe until you're 3/4 of the way in. So it is loosely based on Rumpelstiltskin, with the spinning of the straw into gold, the 3 storerooms of straw that the girl has to spin for the king or something. And anyway, that's sort of pulled in much later in the story, kind of. So if you don't like the story of Rumpelstiltskin, don't worry, you'll probably still like this story. If you like high fantasy. And high fantasy, my understanding of high fantasy is there's no modern technology. It's kind of more think Lord of the Rings. It's that kind of thing. There's typically, I think almost always there is always magic. That's why it's fantasy. And for high fantasy, no modern technology. There's typically kind of classical magical creatures, not necessarily European, but kind of classical magical creatures. So I've read some Japanese high fantasy and things where it's not European magical creatures, but definitely magical creatures that are part of Japanese culture and folklore and mythology and what have you. And so typically they have things like elves, giants, dragons, whatnot. Yeah, I think the hallmark really between high fantasy and fantasy or low, would you call it low fantasy? I think the difference though is modern technology versus not. So yeah. And then sci-fi, science fantasy or scientific fantasy is more it's fantastical in that you live in space and you're battling other planets, armies, and whatever. So this is high fantasy. There's no modern technology. People live in castles. They drive carts and buggies and, sleighs with horses. Yeah, so it's very much that kind of vibe. And it is set in, I want to say a Slavic region. Slavic or Scandinavian, or I don't know exactly, but the names of the characters Oleg and Sergei, those kinds of names. Yeah, so it follows the story of 3 girls, young women. One is the daughter of a money changer or money lender, and they're a Jewish family as well, and so they experience a lot of anti-Semitism, which I think was portrayed well, and they illustrated the struggles with that, I think, well. Yeah, some racism. And so she kind of, the story is mostly about her. And her name is, oh gosh, what's her name? 22 hours of this story. And I'm not remembering her name off the top of my head. Miriam. Her name is Miriam. It's as you can tell, it's a pretty traditional name for a Jewish family. There's Miriam and 2 other girls. One has more of a, okay, I'm not going to try to guess their names. I can't remember off the top of my head. So Miriam is kind of our main character. She basically the whole premise is she turns silver into gold. She does that in a variety of ways. there is some magic involved, as you can tell. But at the beginning of the book, it's not turning silver into gold as you would first expect. But that does evolve as the story continues. The king of the Starik, which are kind of like the fae or the fairies in this story, they're not really considered to be friends of the humans. They go around pillaging and murdering and doing other awful things to the townspeople. And so humans don't like the Starik. And they come in the winter and they pillage and steal and murder and etc. Anyway, she gets the attention of the king of the Starik, the Winter King. And so she has to like do deals with him, and it's very, she's not a fan. And then there's another girl who she hires to help her, and she and her two brothers are in a terrible situation with their father. He is very abusive. So there's definitely a trigger warning around that. He's a very physically and emotionally, mentally, psychologically abusive person. Although we are vindicated by the end, so that's nice. Their stories kind of come together. They become friends. And then there's a girl who is the daughter of a duke who is very like disappointing, like to her father. Like she's not as magical as he was hoping she would be. She's not as beautiful as he wanted her to be. She's not as marriable as he wants her to be. So he sees her as kind of useless. But there's a twist. And she becomes very useful. Not necessarily just useful to him, but useful to the whole kingdom. She is a very strong figure, and she definitely takes control of the situation. When the Starik, the winter people, are trying to create endless winter in the kingdom, and then there's a fire demon that comes up, and they got to deal with him too. So it's a good story. I thought it was clever. The dialogue is written well. The character development is good. The story is kind of a classic. It's a classic kind of storyline, but it does have some twists and turns and just clever developments. It wasn't like you're just reading the same fantasy story that you've read 100 times already. It was well done. And I think the ending was satisfying. Yeah, and it doesn't stay super depressing the whole time. It's just that setup where you have to become emotionally involved and understand where all these characters are coming from first. I will also say that it's kind of fun to read it as a fiber artist because there's spinning involved. She is not spinning like straw into gold, but there's a spinning and fiber theme that kind of goes through the book. Like at one point they actually refer to knitting patterns as magic because you are taking a design and then you're translating it into like symbols and images, and from those symbols and images you can procure that design again and create it out of nothing, and it's seen as magic, which is so cool. So they talk about knitting some, they definitely talk about spinning some, like there are references to somebody picking up their spindle because they need something to do with their hands and they create wool, and they talk about how this person isn't so good at spinning and this person is because of these reasons. And so it's really fun to read as somebody who knits and spins. Yeah, I really liked it a lot, and that is called Spinning Silver. The next book that I'm going to start reading, I'm going to pause the book that I mentioned last time, which is Remarkably Bright Creatures by, I think it's Lucy Van Pelt. I'm pausing that because my friends want to do a book club with me. I kind of brought the idea up and they were like, yes, so we're doing a book club. And the first book we're going to do is Shrines of Gaiety by Kate Atkinson. Beautiful cover. This is one of the books that I got during the Barnes & Noble 50% off all hardbacks sale. So this is set in 1926, and it follows the story of, let's see. let's see here. So everybody's still recovering from the Great War. This is set in London, and let's see, it says the notorious queen of the glittering underworld, of the glittering world, is Nellie Cooker. She's ruthless, but also ambitious to advance her 6 children. So Nellie's empire faced threats both from without and from within. It's set in the dazzling gaiety of Soho, but there's also a dark underbelly. Yeah. So in the clubs of Soho, peers of the realm rub shoulders with starlets, foreign dignitaries, with gangsters, and girls sell dances for $1 at a time. So it's a lot of that, like, you know, the glittering world of 1920s London but the underbelly of 1920s London as well. So I think this is going to be a cool story. I'm interested to see what happens. And I'm excited to read it along with friends and discuss it like a book club. So I know I've mentioned before doing a book club, and I'll throw that out to you guys again. If anybody's interested in reading this book along with me during the month of January, then please join along, and maybe we can chat about it in the Ravelry group, or we need to get a knit night scheduled on Zoom. So I will also get that together. So I think maybe this month we'll have a Zoom knit night. I'll let you guys know in the next episode when that will be. I'm starting back at school this week. Actually, our semester started today. So I'll be back to doing dissertation work. So I'll have a little less free time than I did have this past semester, but that's okay because I really want to get my dissertation done and I want to graduate and be done with school. The senioritis has kicked in, definitely. Yeah, and then work is probably going to pick up again next month. So this is kind of a quiet period at my office right now. So we're not usually super, super busy this time of year, but it'll pick back up in the next few weeks, I'm sure. It usually does. So yeah, so the point of that was, I don't know if we can do knit nights super, super often, but I'm pretty sure we can do one this month. And I don't know off the top of my head when, but I'll look at my calendar and I will let you guys know next time when we will have our Zoom knit night this month. I think that is all for today. Hopefully that wasn't too rushed feeling. We still are an hour in, so I had plenty to share. I figured since I already had 2 finished objects and all of these other things to talk about, I needed to just go ahead and film a podcast. Typically I film a podcast every 2 weeks, but we have a bonus today because I've been doing a lot of knitting lately. So I wanted to share it with you. I think all of that is, yep, we covered everything from my show notes. I'll make sure to put the show notes in the description below the video for you. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Oh, actually, somebody asked me a question last week about this painting, and I figured I'd try to answer it on here in case anybody else is interested, because this is an artist that I think, let's see, oh goodness, Melinda Tracy Rossou. I think that's it. It's signed. So I think it's Melinda Tracy Rossou. It could be Bossou. But this is watercolor. Yeah, this is watercolor. This is a print, but she does all kinds of artwork that is in this style. Very cute. Let me see if I can show it to you guys up close. I bought this when I was in Madison, Wisconsin at like a boutique, but they had all different sizes, and she has different animals and all sorts of different things, but this is super cute and I loved this one so much. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that I would share that with you guys. I will add that to my notes below the video as well, in case you guys are wanting to look up her artwork and maybe purchase some for yourself, because she does do very, very sweet things. Yeah, and just generally, thank you guys always for your comments and your questions. Vlogmas was really fun this year. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for all of your suggestions for the neckline of my tulip jumper. There were definitely several ideas that were intriguing to me, so I feel very hopeful for the neckline of my jumper and that it's not going to get stretched out over time. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, and just generally thank you for being so lovely. I very, very rarely have a comment that is not lovely and thoughtful and kind. So thank you guys so much for that. Yeah, it gives me hope for humanity. So I do appreciate it so much. Thank you for your awesomeness. Please continue to be awesome, and I will try as well. Yeah, so feel free to leave comments or questions down below. I feel like I should leave you with a specific question, but I don't have any now. I usually think of a specific question after I have already uploaded the video. Oh, I remember one question I wanted to ask you guys last week was, what are your plans for 2023 for crafting? Because in my last podcast episode, I shared my crafting plans for this year, or not really plans, but my crafting wishes for this year, intentions. And so I'm curious what yours might be. I know not everybody does those, and that's totally fine, but if you do, I am very curious. I don't really set particularly specific goals or things to accomplish or achieve, especially around my hobby, because it's supposed to be fun and relaxing and restorative for me, so I don't want to make it stressful. One of my main goals was slow down. Or one of my main wishes or intentions was slow down, and I noticed I have to do that a lot. Like when I was doing this, I noticed towards the end on each row, I would be thinking about how many rows I have left and how quickly can I get this row done, and how slow down. You're knitting lovely lace with a beautiful yarn. You've got candles and dogs and tea, and just savor it. So I'm enjoying my twists and turns shawl so much more right now, I think, because I am able to do it slowly. I don't have the rush of, I have to get this done before the next clue comes out, or yeah. So yeah, any intentions that you have for crafting or for your life this year, I'd be so interested to know, and we can support each other along the way. So I think I'll end it here for now. Thank you so much for spending some time with me again. I truly, truly appreciate all of you guys, and I'm so grateful to have you. I never knew that I would find such a sense of friendship and community through the internet and through YouTube, but here we are. I hope that you're having a lovely January, and I hope to see you in the Hygge Make-Along on Instagram and on Ravelry. I think that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.